So, hello, and so glad you could make it to hear about this. I think Barbara needs it to have our amendment, so we hope it will help you. Um, I'm Jane Hamburger, and I'm one of three of the people who let me admit somebody, one of three of the people who were on the steering committee for writing this position, and we'll introduce Eve Bingham and Karen Artell as we go through our discussion. But to say that this is a Larimer County position only would be vastly misleading. We had input from all across Colorado and several opportunities and several major writers to and researchers that contributed to this that we'll name as we go through this. So one of the main things that I'd like for you to know is that this is following through
Climate emergency.
What's going on? That we at several opportunities throughout the year that we have spent on this, we have reached out to all of the local leagues for their input and for any adjustments, and we have accommodated quite a few of the very good perspectives that came into this. But tonight is more about making the resources that were sent to you in the agenda to come alive, to go through it and help you to understand it, and to help you to be able to use it, and to help you to vote tomorrow with knowledge. So that's what we're aiming to do. If
So Jane, I'll go ahead and share my screen, okay? Oh. Can you see that?
Not
No.
yet. It's coming. Good, we're on. So tonight we're here to embellish and elaborate on this position amendment that we have spent the better part of the year following the guidelines that of before the one that Beth mentioned tonight for a study to be done. We had definite lines, and go ahead and change to the, yeah. One of them was our goal to say that we wanted to, I know Sandy asked me when we first talked with the Climate Emergency Task Force, her first question to me was, so what is your hypothesis? And I translated that to be a goal, and to realize that this really is a scientific study that we were undertaking with all of the things of the scientific method that we set out to prove why these things that we were including were important to the oil and gas developments. But the main hypothesis, or our main goal, was to address the changes that had taken place in the law in the past 10 years that have been significant, that affected the very written 2013 amendment and position for Colorado. And I would also say that some of the people who wrote that original position also helped us with ours, and we tried to make it building on what they had done and to take that into account. We kept it broad, as the guidelines said, so that you could ask a question that would fit more in your just keep admitting people, sorry, what your needs were. And we divided into different sections so that you can see what works for you. So that's the reason it seems non-specific. That was part of our intention. Okay, Karen, if you'd switch to the next slide, please. So this is essentially a rough brief version of the timeline that we went through starting last January 23 in our program planning. What came out of our environmental action team was the need to address the changes in the law. So we, part of it was certainly to do a compare and contrast of what was happening in 2013 and what has developed in the laws and people's outlook on oil and gas. And it shifted from just looking at hydraulic fracturing or fracking to be more comprehensive in oil and gas developments. So we are tonight at that final step of our timeline. And to go into this more, I'm going to turn this over now to Karen Artell, and she'll take you through some more of this. Thank you.
So yes, we, with the position statement and report, just to kind of compare them, we have the same themes that the 2013 statement had, except for a reference to the local governmental liaisons, or I can't remember what the term is. We reorganized the statement. We used bullet points just to make it easier to read. And the new topics that we added were cumulative impacts, environmental justice, and financial assurance. My dog is sorry, but he gets very bad when I'm in a meeting. He tries to get my attention. So anyway, so changes to the position statement and report. So we did send out a survey once we finished writing, and I should also acknowledge that Ann Sutton and Bob Viscount also helped us with writing the studies, as did Barbara Donacci. She's with Physicians for Social Responsibility, and she wrote the health study that you've read. So we really do appreciate all the work that they all put into their respective studies. We couldn't have done it without them. So again, as Jane had mentioned, we did broaden the title from hydraulic fracturing to oil and gas development. We did strengthen the climate change language in the introduction to the position statement, and you'll see that when we go over those position statements. And that aligns us with the U.S. League, and you know, the importance of transitioning away from fossil fuels. We added a sentence about regulations and enforcement to the water and air statements. Air quality modeling specifics were added to the air statement. An improvement of the financial assurance study. And then we also fixed typos and clarifications in the reporting study. So we did really appreciate the feedback that we got from the survey from folks around the state. And we also had email recommendations that we went through. So that really did include the writing, the position statements, and the studies. So thank you to everyone who participated in let's see. These are the appendices. So Appendix A through F, and those are the studies that were done. So air quality, cumulative impacts, environmental justice, financial assurance, health and safety, and water use. We also have an introduction and background for this study, but what we call the report. And these are listed in the folder. You've probably looked at the folder, the Google folder. This is how they're listed in that folder. And now Eve will take over. I think she wanted to show this at the amended statement is just like 1.5 pages. So, but anyway, go ahead, Eve.
Hi there. Hopefully everybody can hear me. And yeah, this kind of blurry thing is not meant to be read, but just to show that all the report and the studies and everything that Karen just showed on that you can find on the Google document, that's quite hundreds and hundreds of pages of background. It all kind of boils down to what you'll be voting on tomorrow, which is this amended oil and gas position statement, and it ends up in a paragraph of intro and then some bullet points that cover the separate subjects. So I'm just going to take each of these paragraphs, and we have a slide each for each of the paragraphs. Karen, next slide we can go to. And I'll just kind of highlight some of these things, but these are the actual words that you will be voting on tomorrow. So the whole thing starts out with this summary statement, which is pretty important because it kind of introduces all the concepts that are in the amended statement. And then it's the kind of thing that if someone's looking for this, they'll see the overview, and then they can read more on these in more detail further down in the document. So we basically say that the League of Women Voters of Colorado supports laws, rules, and regulations that enhance public participation in the permitting and monitoring and closure of oil and gas development and operations in the state. We support coordination with local government for environmental management and wise land use. We support strong environmental laws for air, water, soil quality, as well as full transparency and safeguards for all the risks to human health and impacts on wildlife. And then here's a statement that we added after comment from leagues around the state, that the League of Women Voters of Colorado, in lockstep with the U.S. League, we support transitioning away from fossil fuels to renewable energy to address climate change, and that kind of broadens it out. But again, this statement is focused on oil and gas development, specifically one part of climate change. Next slide.
You know, Eve, I'm just noticing that the last sentence is a little bit different from what we ended up with in the actual statement, just so everybody knows. Do you want me to read that difference?
Oh yeah, maybe this slide wasn't updated after our last. Yeah, well, that's kind of, yes, please. Would you please read the last?
Yeah, so the League of Women Voters of Colorado recognizes and supports the urgent need to transition away from fossil fuels to renewable energy to address the climate crisis. So
yeah, that actually is important that we put the word urgent in there at the request of any comments we got.
And crisis.
Yeah, we said, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
all right.
Okay.
So the league supports bullet point here of public information access. We support the transparent, user-friendly websites for posting public notices. We support public hearings held in the impacted community and or conducted virtually with community stakeholders, kind of the importance of keeping things local. Next slide. The league supports, in particular, transparent chemical use and disposal reporting. We support transparency in the reporting of all chemicals used and also proper waste disposal during all phases of the operation, from exploration to final decommissioning, reclamation, and closure.
Sorry.
That's okay. This is fine. So the league supports, the next bullet point is adequate funding of government oversight. This, of course, is the idea that you can have all these rules and regulations, but and great laws, but if you don't have independent government inspectors and a budget to do it, that that it's all for naught. So the league supports adequate funding of government oversight, funding for training and adequate numbers of independent inspectors, staff, and adequate budgets for government enforcement and resolution of issues to ensure that operations are safe, all laws, rules, regulations are implemented, and environmental incidents are properly reported and remediated. So next slide. This statement here is on the protection of water quality and quantity, and this is backed up by the report that we mentioned previously that Robert Viscount helped us with. So that can be found as an appendix on the Google site that we talked about. So the league supports protection of water quality and quantity. We support development and enforcement of laws, rules, and regulations that protect water resources. We need monitoring, reporting, and regulatory oversight of water quantity, how much is used, and water quality, like what the oil and gas development does to the water quality. In order to protect water resources, we want to minimize use of fresh water and maximize reuse of water in all phases. And again, all phases means from the very beginning of exploration to the final decommissioning and closure of any kind of oil and gas activity. And we support research and development of effective water reuse and recycle technology, because as we all know, this is a changing field and we want to make sure that we are always looking for better ways for water reuse and recycle technology. Next slide. The league supports protection of air quality. There's a very thorough analysis of this done by Ann Sutton, and I noticed that she is on the meeting here tonight, which again, she did a great job, and we really appreciate the backup report that supports this statement. The protection of air quality, we support development enforcements of laws, rules, and regulations, again, that protect air quality. The monitoring, reporting, and regulatory oversight of emissions in all phases, including pre-production, because particularly with air, there's already an existing air quality even before anybody starts doing drilling of any kind or disturbing the ground at all. So we even put pre-production in here as one of the phases of oil and gas. We support the use of best available technologies to better characterize and reduce emissions and ozone formation, including ozone precursors, greenhouse gases, co-pollutants, and other toxic and carcinogenic air emissions. So we also put in here, we support air quality modeling to understand the impacts of new and existing emission sources and to predict the ambient air. As we all know, we have this issue in Colorado Front Range, especially that the ambient air, we need this air quality modeling to predict what any of these new actions are going to do to our air. And we support the control strategies with the intention of decreasing those emissions. Next slide. So this was cumulative impacts. Karen did a lot of work on writing the study that supports this. This was one of those new subjects that was added to the statement in 2013. The league supports cumulative impact analysis. And, if people aren't, I think most people can figure out what that means, but it's, kind of a new term, and there's a whole art and science around predicting this, but it's the idea that anybody going for a permit to do any kind of oil and gas action or development needs to not just look at what their one well or one tank or one site, one pipeline will do. It has to be looked at in the whole overall regime of what's already been done. And as we all know, and the Eastern Slope particularly, there are so many already existing wells, abandoned wells, wells that are emitting too much into the air and water, and that all has to be looked at. So we're saying here that we support cumulative impact analysis. We want strong cumulative impact laws, rules, and regulations that require the government, industry, and community to do cumulative impact analysis to protect human health and the environment. The implementations of these laws, rules, and regulations, and policies and guidelines, we support those to address the cumulative impacts of the oil and gas development on climate change, public health, safety and welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources.
Yeah, I think so.
Looking at all those angles.
It's good. I like it. but
All right.
Done for
What we'd
now.
like to hear. The next one is also a new subject that came up. It was part of our law change in Colorado since 2013, and it's a very important one. And this is that we support financial assurance. We support the development and enforcement of the laws, rules, and regulations requiring the oil and gas industry operators to provide adequate financial insurance to ensure the industry's ability to perform all its obligations. And the idea is that this is, they need to look toward the future. They need to calculate what they need to do, for developing and managing these wells or whatever oil and gas action they're doing, and then post a financial insurance mechanism, a bond or whatever our government requires under these laws that fully covers this. And the idea is that we need to do this to protect taxpayers, public health, and the environment. And we do that for all phases of the operations again. So we also, part of this financial assurance package is the industry, our Colorado government has it now with the new law, but the industry, we support the industry funded programs to plug and remediate abandoned wells, because there are many in Colorado. And the idea is that the industry that's active and making money off oil and gas needs to provide enough coverage for remediating these abandoned wells that are really owned by no one. And then another important aspect of this financial assurance is that we want regular public performance review of the agency administering the funds in this financial assurance, our government agencies, to ensure that adequate financial controls are in place. Because as we all know, wherever there's a pot of money, there's possibilities of things going awry. So we're calling for regular review of the agency and how they work with these funds. Next, so we have a statement here about how we support government collaboration and coordination. That in order for all this to work, and that all these complex things that are in the oil and gas industry and the activity that we have in this state, we need coordination between local, regional, state, and national government. We need that collaboration and interagency coordination, which is sometimes different. You don't even have different branches of the same the government coordinating with each other. So they all need to work together, from the national, like the EPA, to our ECMC, to the local governments, addressing oil and gas pollution, mitigation, remediation, and restoration. And the idea is to do this efficiently and effectively. Government collaboration with the private sector we support to foster research and develop of science-based best practices and improvement in technology, so we can get to the best that we can be. Next slide. This is our final subject matter in this amended statement, and Jane Hamburger wrote the study to support this new idea that's part of our laws here now in Colorado of environmental justice. And so that we're saying the league supports laws, rules, and regulations providing for the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, income, disability, and tribal affiliation, when the oil and gas development, operation, and closure is going on. We support that all these laws, rules, and regulations must provide the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards for all, and that we'll have equal access to the decision-making process for a healthy environment in which to live, learn, work, and play. And that's the closing of the statement. So just kind of in summary, all of what I just went through right now is the 24 amended oil and gas position statement that you'll be voting on tomorrow. And we hope you like it and think we have enough input and background on it. It has this summary statement we just went through, and then it's followed by these more detailed bullet points that cover public information, access, environmental protection, transparent chemical use and disposal, adequate funding for government oversight, protection of water quality and quantity, protection of air quality, and then these new ones are highlighted there: cumulative impacts analysis, financial assurance, government collaboration and coordination, and environmental justice. And that just kind of sums up what's in that 1.5-page statement. And with that, I think next slide, I think we'll take questions, and I'm going to kind of turn it over to Jane Hamburger, because as just sort of our moderator on this thing.
And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see everybody, okay?
Sounds good.
So, hope you can do something with that. We have hands up by Amy. Could you unmute Amy and ask your question?
Okay, I found the unmute. Yes, I only have one comment to make and maybe an inclusion. You know, the 2018 League of Women Voters United States Environment Climate Emergency Resolution, which we helped write. I mean, Colorado submitted that resolution and it passed overwhelmingly, but there was a phrase in there where you talk about science-based. You didn't mention, let me see here, I wrote it down. Ecologically sustainable. I didn't hear the word sustainable anywhere. Do you think that that would be somewhere that we could carry that over from the climate emergency resolution? And it was in reference to environmentally sound and science-based. You know, we enumerated what the solution should be: ecologically sustainable, environmentally sound, and science-based. You had, I think, 2 of those, but I didn't see anything about sustainability, ecologically, since it affects animals and land and water, fish and wildlife, that kind of thing. So
It's mentioned
we could
in several places broadly. And I don't know if Karen or Eve want to talk or address that, but I think that was part of our attempt to, the things that we mentioned would make sure that it was sustainable. You would find that and act on that. And we are beyond making any more changes.
Yeah.
I understand. I know. Thank you for your
Appreciate it.
patience with my suggestions. But I just wanted to tie that in with our resolution. But I guess we could just use our resolution for that, right?
There you go.
If-
We can use anything that Colorado or US has said in what we
Yeah.
do.
Right.
So this is for Colorado. Yeah. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
And Marilyn?
Hi, yes, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You have done a wonderful job, all of you. I'm just so impressed with all of it. I used to be involved, I'm in the Jeffco League, And I used to be involved, you know, a number of years ago when we first got into this with the first statement. So I just think it's wonderful. But I wonder if we pass this tomorrow, then what are the next steps for this? What have you got planned for after that?
Good question.
Well, it needs to go somewhere.
Yeah, well, I think it would end up with Colorado League
Yeah.
and become part of their positions. They've already published their 24, 25 positions.
Mhm.
But I don't, Tony, I know you mentioned something, some way that we could work it in.
Right. We will revise the current issues book with the positions in it.
Mhm.
We're doing it every year now because there's so much that goes on. And we also think that people forget things from one year to the next. So
Right.
well, within the next, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. It always takes longer than you think. But the next 2 or 3 months, we will have this incorporated into the current, to the position book as it is now. And it can be used in whatever circumstances that you wish, as far as oil and gas and fracking and so forth.
For our state, but is there any application for it nationally?
You would have to bring it to the national and they would have to vote on it being part of the national positions.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks very much. And
Sure.
good luck.
That was another kind of side thought of ours, was that we would be laying the groundwork for other studies that they could build on what we had done
Mhm.
at different levels. So
Mhm. Good. Yeah.
there's a lot of research done there that would certainly be applicable nationwide. So
Mhm. Thank you.
Kathy, Ebersberger.
Yes, hi, I'm from Arapahoe Douglas County League. And I had occasion to go through all of the appendixes today, and I have to say, this is a first-rate job.
Mhm.
I've been trying to understand the oil and gas regulations and the permitting process for fracking, and this put me ahead by at least a year. So I just want to commend you. I think this is outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Good to hear. And D. Jean Tate.
Yeah, I have a question which is probably not timely either, but this is my first engagement. I'm from Jefferson County,
Uh-huh.
and so Rocky Flats is just north of me. And there was a well that was developed up there. Then it was sold, and someone came in and expanded it and then abandoned it. One of the things I would like to see considered in some subsequent version, and I think you've done a great job of addressing, especially water and air and some of those things, but one of the things I'd love to see added is consideration to the amount of disturbance on the ground. I mean, when they did this well, they just destroyed a huge swath of ground. You know, they had enough place for big trucks to turn around and a whole bunch of tanks and all these wellheads and whatnot. And then they didn't use any of it. So all it was a big scar in the land with no particular, I don't know whether it ever got reclaimed or not, but they didn't need to disturb the native situation as much as they did. So somehow talking about minimizing disturbance, I think, would be a good addition to think about for some future time.
Keith,
But great job.
thank you. Wasn't that our thought behind making sure that they had the money and that they were held accountable and that
Right, but I think that's a fair point that's brought up in that So it says we talk over and over again, as you saw, about all the phases, you know, from pre-development to development. And I think what you're really talking about, Jean, is that how I address you?
Yes,
Is a good point. It's like kind of like they're required to post a bond. They're required to have a closure plan, and it has to be costed out, and then they have to close it up. But I think what you're saying is like they didn't even have to make this mess to begin with, and I think that happens like in the very early permitting stage, and we need to be leaning on our regulators, the ECMC, of like when before they give that permit, they ought to have attention to like, do you really need to tear this up like this to begin with? Because even a really good reclamation plan isn't going to be as good as what we started. So I think it's pretty well covered. I mean, anybody could use this statement to advocate for what you're talking about, you know, because we talk about all phases. So I think it's in there, but it's a fair point that maybe we should have said something about just like minimizing water use, minimizing land disturbance.
disturbance, yeah.
Yeah,
Good
but I
point.
do say we also have a phrase in there of wise land use, you know, and so somebody could take that idea of wise land use, and advocate for what you're talking about. So it is a good point.
And I actually think at this point, if it's not been reclaimed properly, it's contacting the ECMC again, because
Yeah.
with a complaint to get that remediated properly.
Yeah, but as was just said, remediation is never quite the same as, you know, original. So
You know, my background is in the mining industry, and they're in order to get permits for some of the disturbance and huge disturbance they do. I mean, there's the government say could require people to drop things in by helicopter, you know, and you know, on projects that I've been on, that has had to happen. The Forest Service, you know, said you are not like making a road up that mountainside. You're going to have to pay the money to have a helicopter come in and drop it, and it's amazing how much less disturbance there is. So I think we could all use this statement we have to advocate for that kind of changes in the guidelines and the rules and the regulations if there need be. So
Thank you. Tony?
You can look at other positions in the position book. You don't have to just use this one to make your points and take a position. Am I clear about that? There are lots of different positions: land use, air quality, water quality, whatever. All of those can be used along with this position. So you can search and see if your point is addressed. The other thing that we generally tend to interpret our positions with a great deal of flexibility. So the literal wording can be, I got to be careful what I say, can be stretched a little bit. So to back up, I mean, what you're trying to say is, yeah, we hope from cradle to grave, if you will, we have all these concerns. And if one of them pops up that, you know, like PFAS or something like that pops up and we didn't know it before, it's okay. We can apply our positions to that.
Thank you, Tony. Kathy?
Yeah, I want to underline what Tony just said, because when we testify on bills that are impacting, you know, this area of oil and gas, if we can put together, you know, if we can weave together from different positions, we have a stronger rationale a lot of times that is deeper and explains more where we're coming from. So, you know, I'm excited that this new position, or the updated position, can be used in this way. I just congratulate you, and I think the people that are on our environmental issues group in the LAC will make good use of this.
Good. I think that's all the hands I see.
Mhm.
And
Can
I'm
I just say that, Kathy Mayer, is that how you say your last name? Is
Maher.
on, and
Maher.
she helped us with editing. So I just want to recognize her too. She was a big help with that. So
It was a big help. Thank you, Kathy.
is Anne still on? I don't see her. Oh, Anne,
Yeah,
did you
yeah, down there.
want to say anything about the process?
Well, I certainly learned a lot in working on, I worked on the air quality report, and I was already interested in the issues, particularly the ozone problem that we have. Because I'm on the Legislative Action Committee, and we've had some really good, some legislation in the last couple of years. There was an interim committee that addressed it this last year, and I took a lot of information from listening to the hearings of the interim committee. So it's been really an eye-opening experience for me to really dig in with a purpose and find out what are the steps that go into developing an oil field, and where do we need to work? The orphan wells, abandoned wells, there is legislation, there are laws on the books about that, but I think they could be stronger. So that's an area that I think we should keep in the back of our minds. But as Tony and Kathy have pointed out, this is going to help us in the oil and gas arena with legislation that comes forth. But we're already using air quality and water quality and energy and environmental planning and climate action positions, and we put them together and make our case.
Yeah,
This is going to help some more.
we started out with this after the changes in legislation. So they're
Right.
certainly inextricably entwined, I think, in what we're doing. Diana, did you want to say?
I don't know how to put my hand up on this. But anyway, do you think this is going to address the concerns of pollution in our national forests and our parks? We've got a lot of land. And I mean, Rocky Mountain National Park has already had problems with that. Will this help?
Well, as Tony was saying, I think you can find yourself in some of this and what your needs are and how to craft the advocacy that you do according to ours, and that you can use other sources and positions to help craft what.
You're saying the federal government would listen? Or we would even have any effect on the federal lands at all? Because we have a lot of land in Colorado that's federal.
Sometimes the federal government does listen. And what I'll give you a case in point is that the Denver Water Board wanted to build a dam on the South Platte River. And we were opposed to it. And it spread out over many, many years. But ultimately, the Corps of Engineers did not issue a 404 permit, so they couldn't build the dam. So.
And I think as far as Rocky Mountain National Park, you know, they do come before the AQCC, the Air Quality Control Commission. That's what related to like, I don't know if it's nitrogen or kind of ammonia deposition in the high alpine areas that is very detrimental to those areas. So there's, I think, anything that we do to decrease emissions down here, because they do kind of travel west, would be helpful too.
I think it's also important to say that we're not out here operating by ourselves. You know, we are grassroots at the local league, but we're a part of the Colorado League and we are a part of the US League. And they do listen to us and they do advocate and they do advise and they do help. So I do think that what we do here can affect what happens higher up. So we have a question. I lost her.
Karen Hardy, is that how you say it?
Yes, that's correct. With regard to federal issues in places like the National Park Service, let's remember we've got Congress people who have oversight for all of the federal agencies. So we can always appeal to them with our positions.
Absolutely. Kathy, were you?
Although we have to remember the hierarchy,
Mm.
all right? And we take care of state level issues and state level bills, and we need to talk with the US League when we get into the federal areas. We can always write as a citizen, as a constituent to our congressional legislators. The other thing I want to say is one of the things that the US League, if you look in their position book, they have so many positions that have to do with climate and with the environment, just a lot. So in combination of, we use those positions as well as our state positions when we advocate. So
Good. Thank you, Kathy. Sandy?
I think with regard to the federal lands, you have to think on a bigger level that we're trying to change the world, not just a little bit of one county or another county. We're everything we do affects everything. So we have to kind of look at it as a big picture, not just a small picture. And anything we do will help.
Good point. Got to start. Okay, I don't see any, oh,
Did you consult Pennsylvania? Could Pennsylvania use this, Pennsylvania League?
we did attend some of their seminars. She asked if if Pennsylvania could use this, and yeah, we've been in touch with them. We get their newsletters and things, so that's a good point. Yeah. Okay. I think we are about done. Don't see any more questions being asked. I have a long list of thank yous that went into the making of what you saw tonight. We were assigned to the Climate Emergency Task Force, and they have been so helpful in guiding us, in listening to us, in providing opportunities for us to talk with people all across Colorado. So Sandy, thank you so much for your guidance. The Colorado board and their staff have been very supportive. They lived up to their promise to me at the annual meeting. Will you help us? And they said yes, and they sure did. So that's good to know. And in addition to the three of us, Karen, Eve, and myself, we had principal writers, and they've already been mentioned, but let me say it again because it really contributed to the quality of this work. Ann Sutton, Bob Viscount, and Barbara Donachie were principal writers, and Kathy Marr did still another superb job on the editing of this document that just went on and on and on and made it better. So, and then lastly, to the writers of the 2013 position and what you laid the groundwork for us to build upon was greatly appreciated. So we hope to see you tomorrow with a positive vote. And we thank you so much for your time with us tonight.
Great job, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, we don't need to put it.